We have had this gentleman on board for several years now. Roger keeps inviting him back, and we have expanded from B.B. King's to the world stage for good reason. This man is a talented musician. You've heard him in the piano bar. If not, you've got to catch him still. Jerry Lee Lewis was his friend. He's a friend to all of us, all colors, all races, all people. And he has shared with us some of his life experiences. He's a filmmaker. You can catch his film Accidental Courtesy about race in America in our archives on TV, or try to catch it on YouTube wherever you can. And he has just written a book that I think we sold out of already, but The Klan Whisperer. So without saying much more, I'm going to bring him to the stage, the Klan Whisperer himself. Help me welcome to our stage and the world stage, Mr. Daryl Davis.
Thank you, Kevin. Well, good morning, everybody. Well, I tell you what, I know this week has 7 days in it, but it's gone by way too fast. It doesn't feel like 7 days. But anyway, I will start by giving you a little bio information on myself. I'm 67 years old, born in Chicago. My parents are from Virginia, and my parents were in the U.S. Foreign Service, U.S. State Department. So I began traveling around the world at the age of 3 in 1961. And you get assigned to a country for 2 years, and then you come back home here to the States for perhaps a few months during the summer, or if you requested, a year, and you work, domestically, and then you go back overseas to another foreign country for 2 years. So back and forth were the formative years of my life. And my first introduction to school was abroad. I did kindergarten, first grade, third grade, fifth grade, seventh grade, all in different countries and in different schools. The interesting thing was my classmates in these schools abroad were from all over the world. Anyone who had an embassy station where we had our U.S. embassy, all of their kids went to the same school. So this little girl sitting here at this little desk next to me, she might have been from Czechoslovakia, this kid from Nigeria, the kid behind me from Japan, kid in front of me from Italy, you name it. If you opened the door to my classroom and looked in, you would say, oh my goodness, this is a United Nations of little children, because that's exactly what it was. And because that was my first introduction to school, that became my baseline for what school was supposed to be. But every time I'd come back home to my own country, I would either be in all black schools or black and white schools, meaning the still segregated or the newly integrated. And just because desegregation was passed by our Supreme Court 4 years before I was born, 1954, I was born in 58, schools did not integrate overnight. It took years. And even today, in 2025, in some parts of our country, some schools are still struggling with integration. So I want to show you my second grade class. This was in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And this is 1965-66 school year. Now, if you look on the top row, the black kid to your right on the top row, that's me. Okay? And if you look down on the first row, the little girl standing right next to the black teacher, and then look on the middle row, the little boy standing 2 people in from the white teacher. The 3 of us are the only Americans you see in that picture. Everyone else is from a different country. All right? Now, there were more Americans in the school, but that's the whole second grade class right there. All right? So you would never see this scenario back in 1965-66 in this country. You would not have a black teacher in the classroom, or let alone a black and a white teacher in the classroom, and all of this diversity. So that's what I became accustomed to every time I was overseas. Now, one of the times when I came back home, I went to a newly integrated school. When I say newly, I'm talking about 1968 as opposed to 1954, right? There were 2 black kids in the entire school. Me in the 4th grade, age 10, and a little black girl in the 2nd grade. So consequently, all of my friends were white, 4th and 5th graders. This is my 4th grade class. See if you can find me. You laugh, but now, that's what it looks like to be a minority. All right, so between traveling with my parents as a child around the world and traveling as an adult now, graduated from college and began playing music full time and traveling abroad and traveling around this country. I've played in all 50 states, and when you combine my travels with my parents as a child and my now travels as an adult, I've been to 64 countries on 6 continents. What does that mean other than I have a lot of frequent flyer miles, right? What it means is that I have been exposed to a wide variety of people of all different colors, languages, cultures, religions, ethnicities, you name it. And let me give you my very favorite quote of all time by Samuel Clemens, better known as Mark Twain. It's called the travel quote. Mark Twain had a lot of great quotes, but this is one of my favorites. Mark Twain said, "Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. And many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all one's lifetime." And that is so true. So, thank you. So, all this travel does not make me a better human being than someone with less travel. But what it does is it gives me a better and broader perspective on humanity than someone who has not had that exposure to various people. And I can tell you something. No matter how far we go or how far I've been from our own country, the United States, whether it's right next door to Canada or right next door where we are in Mexico or halfway around the globe, no matter who I meet, maybe they don't look like me or speak my language or worship as I do, or maybe not even worship at all, I've always concluded one thing, that everyone I've ever met anywhere on this planet is a human being. And as such, every human being wants these 5 core values in their life. Everyone wants to be loved. We all want to be respected. We want to be heard. We want to be treated fairly and truthfully. And we all want the same things for our family as anybody else would want for their family. And if we can learn to apply those 5 core values, or any of those 5 values, when we find ourselves in an adversarial situation or in a culture or society in which we are unfamiliar or uncomfortable, I will guarantee you that your navigation of that situation, that culture, that society will be much more smooth and much more positive. So I kept, this fascination with racism started where you saw me at 10 years old in that picture. Some of those guys in the back row were members of the Cub Scouts, and they invited me to join, which I did. And I was the only scout in a parade that we had there in Massachusetts. And the streets were blocked off, sidewalks were lined with nothing but white people. Like I said, I was the only black person anywhere in the area and the only black scout. We were the Girl Scouts, Brownies, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, 4-H Club, different organizations. People were waving and cheering, having a good time, until we reached a certain point in the parade route when, pow, I'm getting hit with soda pop bottles and soda pop cans and small debris from the street by just a small group of the spectators over standing on the sidewalk to my right, mixed in with the larger crowd. I turned to see who was throwing things, and I saw a couple kids, maybe a year or 2 older than me, and a couple of adults, who I assume were their parents. I did not know them. But because I had no precedent for this behavior, which is why it's so important for you to understand how I was raised and what I was exposed to. Because I had no precedent for this behavior, my first thought was, oh, these people over here, they don't like the Scouts. That's how naive I was. I didn't realize I was the only Scout getting hit until my den mother, my Cub master, my troop leader all came running and covered me with their bodies and quickly escorted me out of this danger. And I kept saying, why? Why are they doing this? I didn't do anything. What happened? All they would do is shush me and rush me along. And they never answered the question as to why this was happening. Believe it or not, I had no clue. No clue. And so by the end of the march, I had no answer. When I got home that day, my parents, who were not in attendance of the parade, were cleaning me up, putting Band-Aids on me, and asking me, how did you trip and fall down and get all scraped up? I told them I didn't fall down. I told them what had happened. And for the first time in my life, my mom and dad sat me down and, at the age of 10 and explained to me what racism was. Believe it or not, at the age of 10, I had never even heard the word racism because it did not exist in my sphere. You saw my sphere, all right? We all got along. You know, this, whatever they were talking about, my 10-year-old brain could not process because it made no sense to me that they're telling me that because of the color of my skin, somebody who had never seen me, never spoken to me, knew nothing about me, would want to inflict pain upon me just because of this. You know, that made no sense, and my 10-year-old brain could not process that. So I did not believe my parents for the first time in my life. Well, that same year, Martin Luther King was assassinated, and all hell broke loose all over the country, right? Every major city burned to the ground with destruction and violence and all this other kind of stuff in the name of this new word I had learned called racism. So now I understood that this phenomenon does exist, but I didn't know why. So I formed a question in my mind at the age of 10, which was, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? And for the next 57 years, because I'm 67 now, I've been looking for the answer to that question. And I would run into people like this.
I'm Daryl Davis. For the last 4 decades, I have dedicated my life to dealing with people like this.
Cultural invasion from Mexico and every other third world cesspool that's coming here to try to overrun our borders.
It's for the car brothers, and it's right here. Good old fashioned American justice.
Who was that guy? That was Jeff Scoop, the commander of the NSM, the National Socialist Movement, which was the largest neo-Nazi organization in the United States that he led for 25 years.
Okay, so I would see people like that and wonder what is going on in their minds. You know, I need to find out about that. Well, I got my degree in music, started playing full-time after college, and country music had made a resurgence. It had never gone away, but it was no longer on the top 40 charts. It was replaced by disco and whatever else was going on. But a movie came out called Urban Cowboy with John Travolta. Remember that? A lot of line dancing, full of country music. It was a box office smash. So a lot of bars and clubs and venues, you know, that were playing top 40 or whatever, or having top 40 bands, they switched their format to country. And so, you know, if you wanted to make a living playing music, which I did, you played what people wanted to hear. So I joined a country band. And the music was very, very simple. You know, for those, well, you all are on the blues cruise because you love the blues. But if you listen to country music, it's the same music. It's the same 3 chords. Okay? And, you know, Hank Williams Sr. learned to play country, the father of country music, from a black blues street guitar player. His name was Rufus T-Top Payne, P-A-Y-N-E. Look him up sometime. But anyway, so I joined this country band, played country for, you know, a few years. And the band was pretty well established in Maryland, which is where I live now. And I was the only black guy in the band. So they had a gig at a place called the Silver Dollar Lounge in a town called Frederick, Maryland. And the Silver Dollar Lounge had a reputation of not being welcoming to black people. There were no signs, it was just an unspoken, you know, reputation. And I knew about it. I'd never gone there. I didn't have any reason to go there. The Silver Dollar is about maybe 35, 40 minutes from my house. So I knew all about it. But now the band had played there before, and now they're booked to play there again, and now I'm in the band. So I go to the Silver Dollar Lounge, and I walk in, people look at me, you know, but nobody bothered me that night. And we played, and after the first set, I came off the bandstand. I'm following the band to the table, sit down, take a break, when I felt somebody from behind put their arm across my shoulder. Now, I don't know anybody in here, and I can see the whole band in front of me, so I'm turning around trying to see who's touching me so I can get ready to defend myself if I had to. And it was a white gentleman, 15 to 20 years older than me. big smile on his face. And he says, man, I sure love your all's music. I said, thank you. I shook his hand. And he pointed at the stage and said, I've seen this here band before, but I ain't never seen you. Where'd you come from? And I explained, well, yeah, you saw them because they told me they played here before. But this is my first time here. I just joined the band a couple months ago. He goes, man, I sure love your piano playing. This is the first time I ever heard a black man play piano like Jerry Lee Lewis. And I was not offended, but I was taken aback a little bit, surprised that given the fact that this guy was a decade and a half, 2 decades older than me, that he did not know the black origin of Jerry Lee Lewis's piano style. And I proceeded to explain to him that Jerry Lee got it from the same place I did, from black blues and boogie-woogie piano players. That's where that rockabilly rock and roll style evolved. Oh, no, I ain't never seen no black man play like that except for you. So I'm thinking, okay, well, the guy never saw Little Richard or Fats Domino or any number of others. And I said, look, man, I know Jerry Lee Lewis. He's a good friend of mine. He's told me himself. Well, he didn't believe that either. But he was fascinated with me and insisted that I come back to his table and let him buy me a drink. Now, I don't drink alcohol. I never did. But I let him buy me a cranberry juice, right? He pays the waitress, takes his glass, and he clinks my glass and cheers me, and then he announces very proudly, you know, this is the first time I ever sat down and had a drink with a black man. I'm just like looking at this guy, what the? Because at this point in my life, I had sat down with thousands, tens of thousands of white people or anybody else and had a meal, a beverage, a conversation. How was it that this guy had never done that before? So I wasn't trying to be facetious, I was just, naive. I said, why? And he stared at the tabletop, didn't answer me. I asked him again, why? And his buddy sitting next to him elbowed him and said, tell him. I said, tell me. He says, I'm a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Well, I burst out laughing at the guy because now I didn't believe him, right? And I know a whole lot about the Klan. In fact, some Klan people will even call me because they have questions about their own organization and how it runs. But anyway, it's true. But anyway, I knew a lot about the Klan. And I knew they didn't just come up and embrace a black guy and want to hang out and buy him a drink and all that. It doesn't work that way. So while I'm laughing, he went inside his pocket, pulled out his wallet, flipped through it, and handed me his Klan membership card. Instantly, I recognized the blood drop emblem, or what they call the mayo, which looks like this. All Klan members have that. They wear it on their robe and on their t-shirts and all that kind of thing. All right? I saw that, I go, whoa, this thing is for real. So I stopped laughing. It wasn't funny anymore, right? I gave it back to him. But we sat down, we're sitting down, and we talked about the Klan and different things. And he gave me his phone number and wanted me to call him when I was to play back at this bar, the Silver Dollar Lounge, because he wanted to bring his friends, to see, as he put it to me, the black guy who plays like Jerry Lee Lewis. I'm not sure he told me the black guy to his friends, but that's how he told me. I said, okay, so I call him about every 6 weeks, whenever we were to return. And he'd bring Klansmen and Klanswomen. They didn't come in robes and hoods, they came in street clothes. And they would gather around near the bandstand and watch me play with this band. They'd get out on the dance floor and dance, and so forth. Well, at the end of that year, I quit that band and I went back to playing rock and roll and blues and whatever else was going on. And a few years later, it dawned on me, Daryl, you blew it. The answer to your question that's been plaguing you, since age 10, how can you hate me when you don't even know me, fell right into your lap. Because I had tons of books at home, tons that I started buying as a teenager on black supremacy, white supremacy, the Ku Klux Klan, the Nazis in Germany, the neo-Nazis over here, anti-Semitism, racism, you name it, I got it and I read them all. And the books, talk about that kind of stuff, but they don't tell me why. And when I would ask people, how can somebody hate somebody when they don't even know them? They would say, oh, Daryl, that's just the way it is. Some people are just like that. Well, that's not an answer for me. I need something a little more concrete, a little more, rational. And so, anyway, I decided, a couple years later, I'd blown it. The answer to my question fell right into my lap. Who better to ask that question of than someone who would go so far as to join an organization that has over 100-year history of practicing hating people who don't look like them, who don't believe as they believe. Get back in contact with that Klansman and get him to fix you up with the Klan leader from Maryland. And now, a state leader is known as a Grand Dragon. A national leader in the Klan is known as an Imperial Wizard, right? So I wanted him to fix me up with the Grand Dragon. And I'm going to get a hold of him. This is what I'm thinking. I'm going to get a hold of that Klansman that I haven't seen in a couple of years and get him to fix me up with the Grand Dragon from Maryland. I'm going to interview that guy. I'm going to write a book about it. All my books were written by white authors. There were no books written based on in-person, face-to-face interviews with Klan members. So my book would become the first book written by a black author in that kind of setting. So that was my plan. Well, I got a hold of the guy. He didn't have a phone. I had to go by his apartment. He had moved. And when he moved, he didn't have his phone anymore. So anyway, long story short, he was very reluctant to give me the Klan leader's information. This guy really liked me. He was fearful for my safety and his own safety if you were to bring a black guy to this guy. And the Grand Dragon's name was a guy named Roger Kelly. And he said, Daryl, I can't do that, you know. And I said, well, look, just give me the information, you know, I'll take care of it. And so he finally gave it to me on the condition that I not tell Mr. Kelly where I got his personal information. So I had my secretary give Mr. Kelly a call. Now, the guy had told me, Daryl, do not fool with Roger Kelly. He will kill you. And I'm like, well, that's why I need to see him. You know, I need to understand this mentality, right? So anyway, with that in mind, I had my secretary phone Mr. Kelly, because the guy had given me Mr. Kelly's number and his address. And my secretary at the time was a white lady. I only mention it because I could care less what color somebody is, but I mention it because it's important to this story. I figured if I called Mr. Kelly, he might pick up in my voice that I'm black and say, I'm not talking to you, click. And my whole project would have ended before it ever got started. So if Mary called him, he would know that the voice on the end of that phone line is a white woman. And I know the mentality enough to know that his first thought would not be this white woman is working for a black man, right? Because you know that wasn't very common. And so that might up the chances of him agreeing to do the interview. And I told Mary, do not tell him that I'm black. If he asks, don't lie to him, but don't give him reason to ask. And my reason for that was, you know, even if he accepted, knowing that I'm black, he might have different answers for a black interviewer than he would have for a white interviewer asking the same questions, especially if he had time to prepare. So I wanted it to be spontaneous. So she understood, and she called him. He didn't ask what color I was. He agreed to meet. He invited me over to his house, but something had come up for that date, and we changed the thing, and I said, listen, let's meet, you know, in neutral territory. So she told him, you know, and we chose the motel above the Silver Dollar Lounge. And so Mary and I got there super early because they send out scouts in the Klan to see what's going on before they bring one of their leaders. And so I wanted to get there before the scouts got there. And so Mary and I got the room. I gave her some money, sent her down the hall to get soda pop out of the vending machine, fill the ice bucket with ice, get it all ready. I had no idea what this man was going to do when he saw me. Would he come in and sit down and do the interview as he told Mary? Would he say, I'm not talking to you and walk away, or would he attack me? I didn't know what he was going to do. But I knew what I was going to do. I was going to be hospitable. Just like if any of you all came to visit me, I would offer you a beverage, right? So I'm going to offer this guy, you know, a cold soda or whatever. So she got all that set up. Now the way the room just happened to be, if you folks are standing in the hallway to this motel, facing the door looking in, you cannot see who's in the room. You have to come in, turn to your right, and go around the corner. And then you see who's in the room. So I took the little lamp table, which is about the size of this little table right here, and because that's the only table they had in the room, took the lamp off, put it in the most obscure corner of the room. And I put a chair on one side for Mr. Kelly, a chair on this side for me, and I had a little bag similar to this beside my chair leg. In the bag I had a copy of the Bible, because the Ku Klux Klan claims to be a Christian organization. And they claim that the Bible preaches racial separation. Now, I've read the Bible, I've never seen that. I want to be able to pull out my Bible and say, here, Mr. Kelly, please, show me chapter and verse where it says blacks and whites must be separate. And I had, you know, cassettes, blank cassettes and all that, and a recorder. I put the recorder on the table, all in hopes that he would come in and let me, record the interview. So I'm all prepared, right on time, right? And Mary hops up, runs around, opens the door. In walks the Grand Nighthawk. Nighthawk in Klan terminology means bodyguard. Grand means state level, right? So a Grand Nighthawk would be the bodyguard for the Grand Dragon. An Imperial Nighthawk would be the bodyguard for the Imperial Wizard. So in walks this Nighthawk. He's wearing military camouflage. That red circle cross patch right here, the letters KKK across here, embroidered on his cap it said Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, and right here he had a semi-automatic handgun. So he comes in, he comes around the corner, and he sees me and just freezes, right? And Mr. Kelly was on the other side of the corner and didn't realize that his Nighthawk had stopped short. So he came around the corner and boom, hit the guy in the back and knocked the guy forward. And now they're stumbling, looking all around the room, and I'm just sitting there like, looking at them. And I could read their faces. They were thinking, did the desk clerk give us the wrong room number, or is this an ambush, or what? So I stood up, and I went like this to show I had nothing in my hands, and I walked forward. I said, "Hi, Mr. Kelly, I'm Daryl Davis." He shook my hand. So did the Nighthawk, right? So far, so good. Please, come on in, have a seat. He came in, he sat down, and the Nighthawk stood at attention to his right. Before I could sit down, Mr. Kelly says, "Mr. Davis, do you have any form of identification?" I said, "Sure." I gave him my driver's license. He said, "Oh, you live on such and such street in Silver Spring." I'm like, "Yeah." I'm thinking, why is he looking at my address? Is he going to come to my house and burn a cross or what? All he needs to do is look at my picture, look at my name, look at me, match it up, and give me back my license. So I did not want to let him know that he had raised some concerns. And so I said, "Yes, Mr. Kelly, that is where I live. And you live at," and I named his street and house number. And so I was leveling the playing field. Like, if you come visit me, I'm going to come visit you. So let's just confine all this visiting to this motel room, right? So he smiled, he nodded. I did not realize that day. I had no reason to fear him coming to my house for any, nefarious purpose. What had happened was one of his members, who I did not know at the time, lived right down the street from me. Right off my street. My street runs through a couple neighborhoods. He lived a couple neighborhoods over. So Mr. Kelly would have to go to that guy's house by getting on my street. I had no way of knowing that at the time, right? So it was just pure coincidence. And that fellow, he sits in a federal prison in the state of Maine now for a long time for committing a hate crime. So he's not going anywhere. So anyway, we got on with this interview. And every time Mr. Kelly would say, "Mr. Davis, the Bible says," pound his fist on the table, I'd reach down into my bag, pull out the Bible, hand it to him, say, "Show me where," or if my cassette ran out of tape or whatever, I'd get a fresh tape out. Every time I reach down like this, the Nighthawk reach up like this, right? Which I totally understood. That's his job. His job is he's a bodyguard. He has to protect his boss. I'm the enemy. I'm the black guy. He doesn't know what's in my bag. So I understood all that. Well, after about 45 minutes of me doing this and him doing this, he never pulled the gun. He just rested his hand on the butt of the gun, right? He relaxed, and I went in and out of the bag. The bodyguard didn't move. He was fine. About an hour or so into this interview, like I said, Mr. Kelly is sitting right here. I'm sitting right here. It's a very small table in the motel room, and out of nowhere, there was a very short, very fast noise, like a. That was it. And we all jumped. And I knew Mr. Kelly had made the noise. And I flew out of my chair and hit the table. And because the noise was so short and so fast, my ear could not discern what it was. So therefore, I perceived it to be an ominous, threatening noise. And all I could hear in my head was the other Klansmen saying, "Daryl, don't fool with Roger Kelly, he will kill you." So I got that one on in my head. And I thought, okay, I need to go into action. When you fear for your life, you go into what's called survival mode. And in survival mode, you will do anything and everything to preserve your well-being. And there are only several things you can do. Some people, they faint, they pass out. The fear is so great, their brain cannot process it, and the brain shuts down, and they fall out. I don't do that. Other people, they will constrict. They'll fall up and start shaking like this. You can be punching them, kicking them, whatever. They're not even trying to deflect. They're like frozen like that. That's called paralysis by fear. I don't do that either. The next thing people will do is to run away. That is your best option. As quickly as you can, separate yourself from the source of the fear. Whatever's frightening you, get away from it, right? And that's the option that I would have chosen if it was available. If it was not available to me, how am I going to outrun a bullet in a motel room, right? I was not armed, Mary was not armed. The only person who I knew for sure was armed was the Nighthawk. I could see his weapon on his hip. Mr. Kelly was wearing a suit and tie. I did not know if he had a weapon up under his suit and tie or not. All I knew was, I don't want to get shot, and I cannot run a motel room. So then your last option is to do what's called a preemptive strike. Get them before they get you. And when I flew out of my chair, I was on my way across that table to grab the Nighthawk, grab Mr. Kelly, and slam them down to the ground and take away the Nighthawk's gun. You know, I've faced things like that before, not so much with, well, later on with the Klan, but even before all that kind of thing. And I'm very decisive, very deliberate, and I can be very violent if I think my life is in danger. So I was on my way to do that. And when I hit the table, I'm looking right into Mr. Kelly's face. I'm looking him in the eye. And I did not say one word, because I knew he could hear my eyes. My eyes were talking. My eyes were shouting. And they were saying to him, what did you just do? Well, his eyes were fixated on my eyes. You know, he didn't say a word either, but I could read his eyes. His eyes were saying to me, what did you just do? And then I talked like this, what did either one of y'all just do? Well, Mary was sitting on the dresser next to me, to my left. She realized what had happened. And she began explaining it when it happened again. What had happened, and we all started laughing. What had happened was the bucket of ice containing the sodas, the ice was beginning to melt, and the sodas were falling down the ice. That was it, right? But, you know, we had long forgotten about all that because we were so engrossed in conversation, and then all of a sudden some weird noise happens. So this was a teaching moment. I won't say it was a learning moment, it was a teaching moment. And the lesson taught is this: ignorance breeds, all because some foreign entity, that being the bucket of ice, Kansas soda, entered into our little comfort zone, you know, and we were ignorant of what had happened, we became fearful of each other. Ignorance breeds fear. We fear those things of which we're ignorant, those things we don't understand, like that noise. If you don't check that fear will escalate into hatred, because we hate the things that frighten us. If you don't keep that hatred in check, that will escalate to destruction. You want to destroy the things that you hate. Why? Because they frighten you. But guess what? They may have been harmless and you were simply ignorant, right? So we saw that whole chain unravel almost to completion. Had the Nighthawk taken out his gun and shot somebody, namely me or my secretary, or had I pounced across the table and hurt them. So fortunately, it stopped just short of that, and we all began laughing, and we continued the conversation, and the thing kept doing it, and we'd laugh in between. But anyway, at the end, I asked Mr. Kelly if he walked in with a briefcase, a big briefcase actually, and I had a feeling he might have his robe in there, his hood. I said, did you bring your robe and hood? He said, yeah. And I said, well, would you mind putting it on? Let me take a picture. And he said, okay. So I'm sitting there in my motel room. He takes off his suit jacket, pops out this robe and hood, stands in front of the mirror, puts it on. I'm watching this transformation. And the bodyguard, the Nighthawk, is fixing his cape and adjusting his hood and all that. And it's almost like a Clark Kent Superman thing. You know, seriously, when they're in their suit and tie or whatever, they're just as meek and mild as anybody else. But then when they put on that robe and hood, it's like Superman. You know, they just change, transform. Anyway, here is the picture that was taken that day. Okay, now, I began traveling all over the country, interviewing different Klan leaders and members and Imperial Wizards, Grand Dragons, Great Titans, Exalted Cyclopses, and all kinds of different officers within the Klan. And here is a picture at one of Roger Kelly's rallies. This was about 30 years ago now. is towards the end of the rally. You see the fire on the cross is going out, and there are plenty of more Klansmen and Klanswomen there, but at the end of a rally, they all go off to the side where there are picnic tables. And you always leave somebody there to guard the cross because sparks are going to fly as it burns out and set things on fire. So he's there to extinguish it. I asked him to pose for a picture, which is what he did. This one is about 9 years ago in Missouri. Same thing, end of the rally, you got a couple of Klansmen, watching the cross, make sure the thing gets caught on fire while other people go and eat and drink. What do I do with these things? I talk to people. I'm a firm believer that a missed opportunity for dialogue is a missed opportunity for conflict resolution. Nothing gets resolved unless you talk about it, right? So there you go. The guy you see there that I'm talking to with the green cross on his mask, when I came on that rally ground, he threatened my life. Every Christmas since then, he sends me a Christmas present. And he's now out of the Klan as a result of those conversations and those 5 short battles. The guy you see on the right with the Confederate battle flag on his sleeve, that's the Imperial Wizard of that group. He had the largest Klan group in the country. Had them almost in all the states, almost. All right? And he and I were becoming tight. I could tell he was changing. If he had lived for another year, he would have been out of the Klan. But unfortunately, he was murdered. I knew him very well. I knew the murderer very well. I knew his whole family very well. And I went to his funeral, and I participated in his funeral. I played hymns on the piano. Now there were a lot of Klan groups are rivals with each other, but when you see them together at some event, they'll hold a united front. But behind closed doors, they're rivals with each other. And when word went around that I was thinking about coming to this guy's funeral out in Missouri, there were some Klan people who threatened me, told me not to come. I went anyway. And when I got there, his second in command, this guy who was murdered, his second in command, who is now, the Imperial Wizard, or then became Imperial Wizard, he offered me a gun. I said no. And because they all were armed, right? And because he heard about it too. Don't let that guy come to this guy's funeral. But anyway, so I played these hymns on the piano, and he was very, very appreciative of that. And he invited me to speak at a Klan meeting in Lexington, Kentucky, which I did. And then he invited me out to South Dakota to a Klan rally. And I went to the rally out there and spoke at the rally out there. As a result of that, several members, not that night, but over the next month or so, they began emailing me, asking me different questions. And I could tell they were thinking. And then next thing I know, I'm starting to get robes and hoods in my P.O. box. Yeah. So anyway, CNN wanted to do a story. They knew who I was from playing with Chuck Berry. They knew who Roger Kelly was because by this time, he was an Imperial Wizard. He'd gone from Grand Dragon to Imperial Wizard, and he oversaw 13 states. And they heard, that he and I were talking, and they wanted to do a story. So I said, okay. They wanted to know, when's the next time you're going to a rally? I said, I'll call you. So I called them, went to one of Roger Kelly's rallies, and they came to my house, CNN did, and followed me 2 hours up the road in Maryland to this rally. And they said, do you think Roger Kelly will even talk to us? I said, I'll do better than that. When the rally is over, I'll get Imperial Wizard Kelly to come back to my house, and you can interview the head of the Ku Klux Klan inside a black man's house. They're like, whoa, okay. So I spoke to Mr. Kelly after the rally, told him what was up, and said, all right. He drove by himself. So by this time, he and I were getting together. He didn't always bring the night off. So he drove by himself to my house, sat in my basement, and interviewed with CNN. And I'm going to play this clip for you. It was shown every hour on CNN for 24 hours all over the world, and also on HLN. And I want you to pay attention to what Mr. Kelly says. He says, even though he and I would do different things together, it did not change his views on the Klan, because his views on the Klan had been cemented in his mind for years. He goes on to say how he believes in separation of the races, how he feels that's in the best interest of all races. But listen to what he says towards the end. about respect.
This is CNN.
Welcome to this final hour of CNN Sunday Morning. I'm Bob Kane, and today for Miles O'Brien.
Good morning to you all. I'm Joey Chen.
Friendship can transcend all kinds of boundaries.
Just look at us. And two men in the Washington area are showing that even an African-American man and a member of the Ku Klux Klan can find common ground. CNN's Carl Rochelle reports.
Davis is one of the few African Americans you will ever find attending a KKK rally. More than attending, he is welcome.
I got more respect for that black man than I do you white niggers out there.
It's been a tough day for the Klan. Their Maryland rally found many local residents rejecting the message of white separatism. After it's over, Daryl Davis hangs around backstage with his friend, Klan wizard Roger Kelly. It's not unusual for blacks and whites to be friends, but it is unusual to find a black man and a Klan leader chatting pleasantly over an orange soda after a Klan rally. The relationship started over a book Davis was writing. His secretary set up an interview with Roger Kelly, but didn't tell him Davis was black. They talked and talked some more. Davis learning about the Klan, Kelly learning about Davis.
We get to know one another, we do different things, It hasn't changed my views about the Klan, because my views on the Klan's been pretty much cemented in my mind for years. I believe in separation of the races. I believe that's in the best interest of all races.
Does he really? Or has friendship transcended the color barrier? Listen to Kelly at a Klan rally.
I will call right way in the hell about it, because I believe in what he stands for and he believes in what I stand for. A lot of times we don't agree with everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me. And I'll respect him to sit down and listen to him.
The strange relationship of a KKK wizard and his black buddy. In Washington, I'm Carl Rochelle, CNN Sunday Morning.
Strange. Good adjective. Strange.
Certainly that.
Okay, so, thank you. So that's the clip. Now, you heard Mr. Kelly say that even though he and I would do different things together, it did not change his views on the Klan. Because his views on the Klan had been what? Cemented in his mind for years. And he goes on to say he believes in separation of the races and on and on. But did you all hear him say towards the end of that clip that he respected me? What's that all about? I'm the enemy, right? I'm the black guy. I'm the reason he joined the Klan. He didn't like black people, Jewish people, gay people. Anybody that wasn't him, he didn't like. That's what the Klan's all about, right? So how did that come to be? In that one sentence, he named 3 of those 5 core values I told you at the beginning that everybody wants. I told you everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be respected. Everybody wants to be heard. We all want to be treated fairly and truthfully. We all want the same things for our family as anybody else wants for their family. What he said was, we may not agree on everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me, and I respect him to sit down and listen to him. In that one statement he made, he named 3 of those values. He said, I respected him. That's 1. He said, I sat down and listened to him. That means I allowed him to be heard. That's 2. He said he respected me and sat down and listened to me. That's 3. Treating each other fairly. Reciprocity, right? Fairness. Every time I would see this guy, I would employ those 5 core values in our conversations. Now understand something. I'm not a racist. I'm not a separatist. I'm not a supremacist. I'm not a nationalist. I'm none of that stuff. I did not respect what Imperial Wizard Roger Kelly had to say. He said that again. I did not respect what he had to say. I respected his right to say it. Y'all understand the difference, right? We don't have to agree with one another, but we have to agree to allow one another to express their feelings if we want them to hear ours. So every time I would see him, I would, show that kind of respect by allowing him to air whatever he wanted to say, whether I believed in it or not, whether it was negative or not, whatever. Right? Not overnight, but over time, because of those 5 core values that I would employ. That cement that he talked about that held his ideas together began to get cracks in it. And then it cracked so much it crumbled and fell apart, because he began realizing what I was telling him was made more sense than what he believed. And so Roger Kelly quit the Klan, renounced it, and shut down his chapters in 13 states. He gave me his robe and hood. This is the same robe and hood that you saw him wearing in the video clip. Of course, this is what's called the hood. Members who want anonymity, they have a mask that is attached to the hood with three snaps and or Velcro, and they peek at you through these eyelets, so they see you, you don't see them. If they don't care if their identity is revealed, they detach the mask, and the face is revealed under the hood. And you saw both types in that video, some with their faces covered, some with their faces exposed. So I have a lot of robes and hoods and other things. I've been doing this now for about 45 years, all right? And it has not come from telling somebody you're wrong or beating them up or yelling and screaming. It comes from having civil dialogue and applying those 5 core values, and also having a lot of patience. All right, so now back to the other guy that I told you that he was murdered, right? So I brought you some pictures of the rally in South Dakota that I was invited to after his murder, and after I participated in his funeral. The guy who took over for him, the new Imperial Wizard. That's him holding the torch. That's me standing in the middle. They're getting ready to light this cross. And so I spoke there at that rally. And when it was over, I asked them all to gather and pose for a picture with me. And there you have it there. You can barely make me out, but I'm there. Well, when you put me against all those white robes, you can make me out, right? So anyway, that was the end of the rally. Again, the fire on the cross is going out. And you see there were a couple more Klanswomen there. There's one right there standing just to the right of the cross. All right, so anyway, the guy you see the guy who's kneeling with the red sash across him and the green cape. Right behind him is the guy who took over as Imperial Wizard. He's the one you saw holding the torch. All right, so he's the one who invited me there to speak. So anyway, when the rally was over, you know, I had just met him because he lived in a different state than the guy I was seeing in Missouri. But he was the second in command. Anyway, I said to him, I said, you know, I know where I am in South Dakota. I've been here before, but I've also been to Mount Rushmore before. But I wasn't sure what the proximity was to it, from where we were there in South Dakota. And I said to him, I said, hey man, how far is Mount Rushmore from here? He goes, oh, it's only about 20 minutes. I said, okay, well, I want you to come by my hotel tomorrow and you know, can you pick me up there? He goes, yeah. So he came by my hotel with a couple of these Klansmen and one of the Klanswomen, one of their wives, and picked me up from the hotel and drove me to Mount Rushmore. Here we are. This is what those 5 core values will do for you. Okay? And guess what? Today he's no longer in the Klan. Yeah. Now, we're going to go back a little ways. How many of y'all remember Geraldo? All right. So they used to book me on there, and then it got to the point where the producer for Geraldo was calling me, asking me to get Klansmen and this, that, and the other, because they didn't know enough. I knew more than they did, so I'd get them on the show or whatever. But anyway, this was an episode called Families in the Klan Teaching Children to Hate. And you're going to see an Imperial Wizard from another group, big guy, and you're going to see 2 girls, a 14-year-old named Erica and I think she's 11 in this, named Erin. Listen to the answers they give Geraldo. You can tell those answers are not coming out of the mouths of a 14-year-old or an 11-year-old. These are answers that have been programmed into them by their parents. Okay?
Okay, kids, children too young to hate have been dragged into these organizations by their parents. I'd like to introduce two African Americans, two black people who have a very unusual take on this whole Klan thing. First, Daryl Davis. He's soon to publish a book which essentially states what we believe on this program, that the KKK, like all Americans or all people in our country, has a right to speak their mind. Daryl, it is unusual that a black author would devote so much time to doing the kind of seminal Klan history that you are working on now. I want to ask you why you've chosen to do that, but I would like to ask you if in the past the hate groups, or at least the separatist groups, the KKK, etc., have they had an active children's movement? Is it like Hitler Youth, for example?
Well, the children's movement started with a fellow named Tony LaRicci in the state of Maryland, who formed the Klan Youth Corps.
And when was that?
In the early 70s.
Okay, Mike, why don't you lead out the various Klan families, and they can put the applause is from the skinheads in our audience. Donna is our next guest. Donna is a bit old. How long have you been into it, Donna?
About 2 years.
Just 2 years.
But I've always been with white pride. I believe in white pride, white power. Very
Even
much.
if you didn't express it, you mean you or didn't belong to an organization, you felt that.
I took my time with choosing an organization because there's so many different ones.
And which one did you choose?
Territorial Clans of America.
It's a KKK group.
Nice of the Ku Klux Klan, yeah.
And your age?
31.
Okay, Tina, what's your story? Where do you come from?
I come from Delaware. I'm with the TKA also.
The same organization as Donna.
Yes.
And this is your daughter?
Two of them.
Two girls here, and which is your husband? Okay. Could you take the kids up same way previous family did? Hi. Okay. Let me talk to the kids. And your name and age?
My name is Aaron, and I'm 12.
So, what do you think about your parents belonging to these organizations?
I think it's fine.
Why, sweetie?
Well, I mean, they're allowed to like their race. They're allowed to be proud of who they are, too.
Does it sometimes embarrass you when they get all dressed up like that?
No, not at all.
And your friends? Do your friends like it?
Yeah, my friends like my parents.
Are you going to be a member of the group also?
Yes.
Hi. And you are?
Erica, I'm 14.
And how old were you when your parents first got involved?
I don't know. My parents don't include us with the inner things that they do. I just know they're members.
Your 12-year-old sister wants to join when she gets old enough. Do you also?
Yes, I do, very much.
And why?
Because I believe that white people are extremely hurt today in our society. You laugh all you want, it's true. I think we need to get back what everybody has taken away from us. We need equal rights.
You're obviously in high school, right? You're the same age actually as my son. He's a freshman. Are you a freshman?
No, I'm a sophomore.
Oh wow! So you must be a little bit older. Do your friends make fun of you at all?
No, not at all. My friends, like my parents, some of them also want to join.
Thanks. So you two can, if you don't mind, sit down and just talk to Dad here for a second. So Dad, what do you want for your daughters?
I just want them to be able to grow up and have some decent breaks.
Okay, Dad wanted his little girls to grow up and have some decent breaks because society has taken everything away from white people and they need equal rights. You heard that? You heard them say that, okay? That's the information that's being put in their minds, right? I was so now I knew some of the Klan people on there, and by the way, you see the guy sitting next to me in the red jacket and the red beret? That was Curtis Sliwa, the head of the Guardian Angels, who's now running for mayor of New York. But anyway, I knew some of the other Klan people and Nazis in that crowd. I did not know these people, but I was so disgusted by what those parents were doing to those two girls. You can join the Klan when you turn 15, and they both said they're going to join. Erica was 14 and she was 12, I believe she said she was. So I wanted to go meet them, and so I went down the hall to where their dressing room was. They had Joan Rivers' dressing room in the studio, and when they found out it was Joan Rivers' dressing room, they destroyed it because they don't like Jewish people, and Joan Rivers was Jewish, right? So anyway, I went down there, and like I said, I knew some of the people, I didn't know them. and I met them. They were not warm and friendly, they were cordial. And so, not too long after that show, I was at another thing, and the Imperial Wizard, the dad, he and I and a couple other Klansmen got into it, and I had to beat him up. And so a bunch of sheriff's deputies came, and they arrested some people, not me. Anyway, I took them to court and beat them in court as well after beating them on the street. And he went to prison shortly after that, not for what happened with me, but for some other stupid stuff that he was doing in the Klan. And he got 10 years in the federal prison. When you go to prison, to the federal prison, you do the whole sentence. There is no good behavior, get off early, right? That's all in state prison. In federal prison, you do the whole sentence. So anyway, they put him in one of the toughest penal institutions in our country, in Marion, Illinois, the Marion Federal Prison. And so he was there, and about 3 years later, I got a call from the Jenny Jones TV show, wanting to know would I come on the show. And I said, sure. And they said, would you be willing to debate the Klan? I said, sure. And they said, well, you know any Klan people who can come on and you'll debate them? I said, yeah. So I called this Klan group in Indiana that I knew, very violent, very vicious. And they said, yeah, they'd come on and debate me. So got them booked. And then I thought about Tina, the mother of those girls that you saw on the stage there. She had not seen her husband in 3 years. And the only communication she had with him was letter writing and the collect phone call from the prison. She'd never flown out there. She wouldn't know how to drive out there. Of all of them, she was the nicest to me. Not overly nice, just cordial, but the most cordial when I met them in the dressing room. And so I called her up. I had an idea. I was going to see if she wanted to go out to Jenny Jones, and debate me. She's a Klanswoman. She can debate me. And if she wants to do that, I'll arrange for them to fly her out and put her up and fly her back. And I would rent a car, and I would drive her from Chicago to Marion to visit her husband. That's about 300 miles. And so I acquired her phone number. And when I called, she answered the phone. And I said, Tina, this is Daryl Davis. Immediately, she cussed me up one side and down the other and just went off. I said, Tina, shut up for a second and listen to me. And I told her, what I was proposing. If you want to come on Geraldo, you can do that. They'll arrange all the transportation. And if you want, I will drive you out and you can visit Bob. And she was very hesitant. She didn't trust me. The last time, anything with me, I was beating up her husband. So, she had no love for me. And I said, listen, think about it. Give me this is my number. I had to write it down. You give me a call back within an hour. If you don't, if you don't want to go, fine, don't call me. But if you want to go, call me back within an hour, and I'll arrange it. So within an hour, she called me back. She said, okay, I'll go, but I have a problem. My little girls, I can't leave them by themselves. Can they come? I said, well, hold on, let me call you back. So I called the producer out there in Chicago, and he said, yeah, we'll fly out the whole family. All right, call her back. I said, everybody can come. Well, Erica, the 14-year-old, who is now 17, because it's 3 years later, she was a member of the Klan. She had joined. All right. Erin, the one who was 12 years old, she was also a member of the Klan. She was 15, and you can join at 15. So they both are Klanswomen. And Tina had a couple little ones, like 7 or 8 years old. So Erica, the older girl, could not go. She had a job. She couldn't get off work. But Erin, the one 12-year-old that you saw who's now 15, and the two little ones could go. So we met at BWI Airport. They came in from Delaware. And we met at BWI Airport, and I flew out to O'Hare in Chicago. And the Jenny Jones car picked us up, took us to the hotel, and then I went to Hertz and I rented a car. And I drove them all the way out to Marion, right? And I sat in the parking lot while they went in to visit their father and husband. I really didn't have any reason to go in there and see the guy. And so anyway, all the way out there, they were very, very quiet. Not quite sure, what was going on. Is this a setup, a trick, or whatever? They were very quiet. but all the way back. I mean, they were lively, they were animated. You know, they hadn't seen their father and husband in 3 years. The Klan didn't do that for them. I did it. All right? So, went back to the hotel. Tina stayed in the hotel room and babysat the little girls. And the 15-year-old, Erin, and I went out on the town of Chicago. And I showed her around. We went to House of Blues. Willie Nelson was playing there. He was almost finished with his set. So the door guy let us in. So we caught the last, 3 or 4 songs and got some souvenirs and back to the hotel. So next morning, we go on Jenny Jones. And the daughter and Tina, they would not debate me. They kept protecting me from the other Klan group that was debating me. It was a very weird dynamic, right? How were they going to debate me when I did this for them, right? So anyway, on the flight back home, both the daughter and mother quit the Klan. When they got home, they talked to the older daughter, Erica, and she left. A couple years later, while still in prison, Bob, the Imperial Wizard, quit the Klan, and he told him to thank me. And so, he's out, he's done. And now, on Martin Luther King Day, I think it was 2002, I believe it was, Erin and Tina wanted to come. I'm going to do a presentation for the city of Rockville, Maryland, on Martin Luther King Day. They wanted to come to my presentation. And now Erin, she's now 20 years old, right, the 12-year-old, this 8 years later. She couldn't come because she had just gotten married and was going on her honeymoon. And she invited me to the wedding. I went to the wedding. And but Tina could come, so I had an idea. I was not going to tell my audience that I had a former Klan member seated up there amongst them. I was going to say a little bit, and I was going to show that clip from Geraldo that you all saw so they could see these two women, Erin and Tina, in the Klan. And then I was going to bring Tina up out of the audience, now out of the Klan, and let her speak. So Erin couldn't make it because she was going to be on her honeymoon. So I had a gig in Charlottesville, Virginia, one night, and I drove all the way from there, all the way up to Delaware, to make this little 30-second video clip of Erin that I could show at my presentation, wishing the city of Rockville a happy Martin Luther King Day and all this. You saw her at age 12, here she is at age 20.
What you just saw was a video clip taken 8 years ago that showed me, a mother in the Klan named Tina, her 12-year-old daughter Erin, her other daughter, and her husband, who was the head of the Ku Klux Klan. Today, I'm seated here in January 2002 with Erin and her husband, Harley. I recently had the pleasure of attending their wedding. Erin has a message for you.
Hi, my name is Erin and I'm now 20 years old. Me and my husband Harley would like to extend our best wishes to the city of Rockville, Maryland, as you celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. Neither me nor my family are members or are affiliated with the Ku Klux Klan anymore. When I was 15, Daryl Davis took me to Chicago to visit my father, who was then the Imperial Wizard. It was the first time that I had socialized with a black person. It was also the first time that I began to question my upbringing. If you are a parent that teaches hate or racism to your child, you need to know that you are committing the worst form of child abuse. It is wrong to try to close a mind that has not yet had the chance to be opened. If you're a child that's being taught hate or racism, you also need to know that that is wrong. There is one race, it is the human race. And together, we shall overcome.
Okay. So, that was shot about 4:30 in the morning. It was like dozing off. But, so then I showed that, and then I brought Tina up out of the audience, and this is what she had to say.
And together, we shall overcome.
Now tell me, is that living the dream or what? All right, now, you saw the Klanswoman mother of Erin, a lady named Tina, on there, and the whole family is now out of the Klan, I'm glad to say. Tina was married to the Imperial Wizard, former Grand Dragon, then became Imperial Wizard, the national head of the Ku Klux Klan, of that Klan group. And she's come a long way philosophically from being a member of that organization, a Klan member, to renouncing the Klan, and her kids renouncing the Klan. She's also come a long way. I went to her house the other day and visited with her. And I told her what I was doing today. And she wanted to come down and be a part of this. Former Klan member, Tina Tweet.
Well, my little girl came a long way. You know, no thanks to her father and I. We really did our best to destroy our kids, and through the grace of God, somehow she came out with a really good head on her shoulders anyway, despite us. I'm really ashamed when I see that clip on Geraldo. I've come a long way since then, but when I see that clip, it's like it's a whole nother life. It was a whole nother person. That is not me at all. I was raised in a household that had zero tolerance. And as a little girl, I mean, I wasn't allowed to watch Good Times, which I snuck around and watched anyway. Shows like The Jeffersons and stuff like that. My dad would not allow it. So, you know, that seed later on, the seed's planted, it grows, it explodes, you know, eventually explodes. And, you know, I can't say as to why people actually join hate groups or why they hate or why anybody thinks that they're superior to anybody else. I can't even tell you why I actually went as far as I did. All I can say is that through the grace of God, He gets all the praise, the honor, and the glory. He was in my life. He is in my life. And if it wasn't for Him, I don't know, you know, where me or my children would be. And I do believe God does work through people, other human beings, and He most certainly uses Daryl Davis as an instrument, because that man has touched a lot of lives, mine in particular, and like my stepdaughter had said, he accompanied us one time to Chicago. I had never been around black people before. I mean, not on a whole weekend. Me and my children, we went with him, and he took better care of us than my own husband was taking care of us. So he was in prison, and we were alone. And Daryl shepherded us to Chicago, got us home safely, took us to see their father. And Daryl's not just my friend. I'm very proud to be his friend, but he is my family. My little children, I have 3 little ones, they call him Uncle Daryl. They love him, and I love him.
Thank you, Tina. Well, that's living the dream right here in Rock.
Okay, so you've seen a couple of snapshots of what can be done. All right, you know, this mentality is a learned behavior, and what can be learned can be unlearned, and there are ways to go about it. And I found a few of those ways. I'm going to walk you through it step by step. All right. So Charlottesville, Virginia, a few years back, had a large white supremacist rally that turned deadly. And I know the guys who put on that rally. I know them personally. Some of them have been in my home. I've been in some of their homes. Nasty bunch of people. This is a scene from that day, August 12, 2017. Somebody threw an aerosol can at the black gentleman there. He picked it up, lit a match or a cigarette lighter, and created an improvised flamethrower. And he's trying to set these guys coming down the steps on fire. They're trying to beat him with their Confederate battle flagpole. And so you don't know it because you don't see them in their Klan robes. I know it because I have seen them in their Klan robes. All those guys on the steps there are Klansmen. The guy in the front with the white t-shirt and camouflage pants, he's the Grand Dragon of Virginia. The Imperial Wizard for that group has already come down the steps. He's like over here, out of the camera shot. I'm going to set it up for you. He's wearing a black bandana, a blue jean vest, and black jeans. You're going to see a puff of aerosol in the air, and you're going to see him come down and duck under it and come walking this way. He turns around. By the time he turns around, the guy's already lit the flame. So he sees what you guys are looking at. He pulls out a gun and points it at the head of the black gentleman and shouts, "Hey, nigger." And then he lowers the gun and fires it and the bullet goes into the gravel in front of the black man's feet. Law enforcement had to dig it out. And then he turns and continues walking in that direction, right past the Charlottesville police. You'll see them at the top of your screen on the right. They're wearing green neon vests, standing there like this. Not one of them moved. Somebody pulled out a gun and fired it, and not one police officer moved. For that reason and many other reasons that day, the mayor of Charlottesville fired the Charlottesville police chief, and rightfully so. So today, Charlottesville has a new police chief. All right, so let's take a look. There he is, right there. You see the police top of the screen. Okay. This is our country, folks. What would you do if that came to your town? You can't say, oh, no, that happens over on the East Coast, Charlottesville. No. Charlottesville is one of your cities, no matter where you live. If you are an American, the whole country belongs to you, including every city in this country. And anywhere there's hate, that can happen. Our country can only become one of two things. One is become that which we sit back and watch it become, or two, that which we stand up and make it become. And only you can answer which one you want to do, right? So we can play the blame game real quick. Let's blame the black guy for trying to set people on fire. Okay, you can get some blame. Let's blame the Klansmen for trying to beat people with their Confederate battle flagpole. Okay. Let's blame the Imperial Wizard for firing a gun. Okay. Let's blame the Charlottesville police for not doing what we paid them to do, to serve and protect. They were serving and protecting nobody that day. All right, so yeah, they get some blame. But maybe we should blame ourselves for allowing our country to come to this point in the 21st century. You're right. So, but I'm gonna tell you something. Blaming people is a waste of time. I blame her, she blames me, we blame him. It just goes around and around and nothing gets done. All right? So what did I do? I called that Imperial Wizard up. Here he is. You saw him in his street clothes. That's him in his Klan attire. I called him up. I said, hey man, you and I need to talk. Not Klansman to black man to man, American to American. Your Confederate history is just as much a part of my history as my black history is a part of yours. You and I need to get together and explore American history. So after 20 minutes, he finally agreed. We set a date, he gave me his address. I drove by myself, unarmed, to this guy's house. I sat in his living room, KKK stuff all over the walls. I sat on his couch that was covered with a Confederate battle flag blanket. And I listened to him and his Klanslady fiance give me a 2-hour lecture on American history. Some things he got right, some things he got wrong. I did not interrupt him. Why? I'm respecting his right to say what he wants to say. I'm allowing him to be heard, right? So when he finished, it was my turn. First thing I did was I corrected him on the things he got wrong. I know my history. But I also commended him on the things he got right. But rather than sit there and give him a 2-hour lecture, I had a better idea. A brand new museum had just opened up in Washington, D.C. called the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. I said, listen, let's, you all come down to my house. I'll drive you into D.C. We'll set a date. And let's explore that museum together. He agreed. Why? He's treating me fairly. I treated him fairly, right? So we set the date. They came down to my house. We hung out in my living room a little bit, the fiance, the Klanslady, and him. And then I put them in my car, drove them down to D.C. Here we are entering the world's largest Black History Museum. Notice what he has on his head. Okay, and there's the Klanslady. So what did we do in this museum? We looked at displays on slavery, on desegregation, on integration, on Jim Crow. We watched little videos on blacks in the arts, in music, in education, in science, in medicine, in sports, and different things, right? And then he's a big music fan. His favorite artist of all time is Elvis Presley. I love Elvis Presley. I'm a huge Elvis fan. I saw Elvis over a dozen times. I met him a couple times, and I went to Elvis's funeral in 1977 when he died. I love Elvis, but Elvis did not invent rock and roll. My boss invented rock and roll, Chuck Berry. There wouldn't be an Elvis without Chuck Berry, or the Beatles, or the Stones, or Led Zeppelin, or Ted Nugent, or Metallica, or Elton John. Anybody who plays any kind of rock music, all of their DNA goes back to Chuck Berry. All right. So anyway, he likes Chuck Berry music, and Chuck had donated one of his Cadillacs to the museum. I saw it at Chuck's house, but now it sits in the museum, and he wanted to go see the Cadillac. Now you notice that he's holding his fiance, right? So we go to another part of the museum to check out Chuck's Cadillac. There it is. Now who's holding his fiance? Do you all see how fast I work? Folks, it's serious business. That picture could never have been taken without those 5 core values. A black man holding a Klan's lady, the fiance of the Imperial Wizard, standing right there next to him, that's not an everyday thing. That is the power of those 5 core values, folks. Okay? So we've been in there for about 2.5 hours. You can barely chip the tip of the iceberg of that place. It is so huge. All right? So I figured, that's enough. Let's go. So I said, come on, let's go. So we go outside. I walked over to the marquee in front of the museum, and I gave the Klan's lady my cell phone camera, and I said, hey man, come over here and pose for a picture with me. This is what he did. Totally unscripted, totally spontaneous. Oh, well, I'll show you that in a minute. We're speaking about Chuck Berry. How many of you all saw Back to the Future? You remember that scene where Marty McFly, Michael J. Fox, comes to the dance high school prom and plays Chuck Berry's Johnny B. Good and does the duck walk?
Chuck, it's Marvin, your cousin, Marvin Berry. You know that new sound you're looking for? Well, listen to this.
All right. Now I'm going to show you all the real deal. All right. This is I worked with Chuck for 32 years. Not every gig, but many gigs. This is an early one, back around 1981 or something, back when I was slim and trim and had hair on my head. And anyway, if you listen closely, instead of saying "Go Johnny Go," he says "Go Daryl Go."
In the beginning, there was Chuck Berry. In the beginning of rock and roll, that is. The legend of Rockin' and Rollin' was in town tonight doing his thing at Harmelites. And Denise Cope, the world's oldest living teeny bopper, was just down here.
I must be, because he still does something to me, I tell you.
True.
Well, he was there when rock and roll was born in 1955, and every rock musician since then has had Chuck Berry to thank. You know, Maybelline, Roll Over Beethoven, Sweet Little 16, and Johnny B. Good.
He can play the guitar like ringing a bell. Go, go. Go, 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 go. I say go. I say go. Go, go, go. Johnny B. Good.
Now, 1,700 Chuck Berry fans were in rock and roll heaven tonight, and they come in all sizes, all ages.
For 25 years or more, I've loved the man. Old guy like him getting down.
Remember the duck walk?
I love Chuck Berry. I like to play, and I had to bring my pop down here tonight.
At one time, Chuck's backup band was Bruce Springsteen and Company. Tonight, they were local musicians jamming with the king.
He'll play a lick, and then I'll imitate his lick.
And these are things that you don't plan.
Right. All spontaneous. That's rock and roll lick.
God love Chuck Berry, because if it wasn't for him, there would be rock and roll today.
He said, well,
Okay. Thank you. So, we come out of the museum, I go to the marquee and tell him to come pose for a picture with me. This is what he did. Totally spontaneous. Again, that doesn't happen, folks. Right? This is 2 months shy of a year from when he pulled out that gun and fired it in Charlottesville. That happened in August of 2017. This is June of 2018. It's 2 months shy. And it doesn't end there. You know, I've been working with them for about a year, and he's going to marry that girl the next month in July. Guess who gets invited to the Klan wedding? I said I'd go. But then a couple weeks later, before the wedding, they called me up. And the girl is from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And her father was too ill to come up and walk his daughter down the aisle and give her away. Rather than ask one of their trusted Klansmen who was going around trying to beat people with that flagpole, they asked me if I would step in and do it. How crazy is that? I had to pause. I had to pause on that one, right? And I thought about it. You know, this has never been done before. I'm going to do it. I said, but I want it documented. So I told him, I said, listen, man, let me call CNN and get this documented because this has never been happened before. He said, okay, they trust me. He said, ask CNN not to film any of my Klan members' faces because they can lose their jobs. I said, I understand. He said that they can film his face, her face, and the preacher's face, and of course my face. So I said, okay, I called CNN. They agreed. So they came to the wedding. They'd already interviewed him a long time ago. He said, I'm going to be buried in my Klan robe. And so they ran that quote under this little clip. He got married in his backyard. Here it is.
As you stand in the presence of God.
This time, it was Davis giving something away. The bride.
Me and his friendship has been something really special. She wanted me to be a part of this wedding. That's beautiful. That's a seed planted.
So there you have the Imperial Wizard, groom, the Klan's lady bride, and the surrogate father. Okay, now I showed you that clip, and so you see the steps that I would go through to expose them to different things. You remember the clip of the guy holding the noose and all that? Let me show you the full clip now, and then we'll wrap it up here. There you go.
I'm Daryl Davis. For the last 4 decades, I have dedicated my life to dealing with people like this.
Cultural invasion from Mexico and every other third world cesspool that's coming here to try to overrun our borders.
It's for the Carr brothers, and it's right here. Good old-fashioned heritage justice.
Who was that guy? That was Jeff Scoop, the commander of the NSM, the National Socialist Movement, which was the largest neo-Nazi organization in the United States that he led for 25 years. I interviewed Mr. Scoop in 2016, and he told me with no uncertainty and with racist and anti-Semitic venom in his voice.
We would fight to the last bullet for our people.
While it is important to know who he was, it is more important to know who he is today. For the last half a decade, Jeff Scoop has gone from radicalization to reconciliation, from fighting to the last bullet for his people, to fighting for the rights of all people. Today, he is a world-class educator, training and assisting law enforcement agencies and other groups, both domestically and internationally, on how to combat counter-extremism. He has successfully de-radicalized others from the ideology of white supremacy and works actively to prevent young people from going down that road and joining those movements. From radicalization to redemption, Jeff has made it his mission to meet with the very people he once diametrically opposed with his racist and anti-Semitic views. When Jeff is not doing good deeds and lecturing on his own, I am proud to travel around the country and share my lecture stage with him. He educates the audience on the triggers which led him to join an extremist movement. He also shares the manipulations and tactics he learned and used to keep people in that ideology and to recruit more members. Equally important, he informs people about what led him to leave the movement and renounce the supremacist ideology that poisoned and imprisoned him for 3 decades. The take-home, audiences become better informed and learn how they too can help make this a less divisive, more kind and accepting society. From standing at opposite ends of the ideological spectrum to coming together and sitting down at Martin Luther King Jr.'s proverbial table of brotherhood. Who is Jeff Scoop today? He's not just my friend, he is my brother.
So I just want to take a couple minutes real quick and talk about rock and roll for a minute. You know, rock and roll has been under...
I'm Daryl Davis.
Oops. There you go. Rock and roll has been undercredited in civil rights and things like that. Back in the day, concert halls were segregated. If black people were allowed inside at all. There were seating sections for black, seating sections for white. You could not cross-sit. If you did, you would be arrested. That was the law, right? But when Chuck Berry and Little Richard and Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis and people like that came out on stage playing this new rhythm, this new beat, white kids and black kids could not sit still. They bounced up out of their seats and began boogieing and dancing in the aisles together for the first time in the history of this country. The police would come in and shut the show down in the middle, pull the plugs out of the wall. So that concert was over. Mayors, city council people were banning rock and roll concerts from coming to their town because it caused race mixing. Here's the interesting thing. Those black kids and white kids who were dancing together with each other did not even know each other because they didn't go to school together back in the 1950s. Schools were segregated, you know, but yet they're dancing on the floor together to this music. So the powers that be thought it was some kind of communist plot to corrupt white youth and all kinds of crazy stuff. Here is a little bit of actual news footage. The guy you see behind the typewriter, his name was A.Z. Carter. He was a Klansman and went on to become the head of the White Citizens Council of Alabama. And then he went on to become George Wallace's speechwriter when George Wallace was governor of Alabama. But here you're going to see the mayor of Jersey City, New Jersey. So it wasn't just happening in the South, in the North too. Jersey City, New Jersey, banning rock and roll from coming to Jersey City because he had heard about the incidents that had gone on through the country, and he didn't want the dynamite to go off in his city, the dynamite being race mixing.
Set up a 20-man committee to do away with this vulgar, animalistic, nigger rock and roll box.
The obscenity and vulgarity of the rock and roll music is obviously a means by which the white man and his children can be driven to the level with a nigger. It is obviously nigger music.
Well, John, it's our feeling here in Jersey City that this rock and roll rhythm is filled with dynamite, and we don't want the dynamite to go off in the Roosevelt Stadium in Jersey City. After we heard about the incidents throughout the country and the coming of this concert to Jersey City, I asked our Commissioner of Public Safety, Lawrence Whipple, to look into the matter, and he did make a survey of the situation.
My department made a very thorough investigation of these so-called programs. We had telephone conversations and correspondence with various municipalities, included among these being Hartford, Connecticut, Orange, New Jersey, Asbury Park, and the city of Hoboken. And we find that these programs are not for the good of the community, and that's why I ordered them banned.
He ordered them banned, and he had the authority to do so. So, because of these artists, a lot of them would not perform in our segregated theaters. And that's one of the reasons why we all can sit together today. So I'm going to close it out with this last clip here. This is the America that I want to see. Let me show you a couple things that I brought here. I don't want to see these flags that I see at many Klan rallies and marches. I got this from a leader who quit, another one. And Jeff, the guy that you saw on that last clip of the Nazi movement, gave me this when he quit. And we have way too many of these. Okay? This is what I want to see. This was a few years ago. Chuck Berry playing the Capitol Fourth, which is the most watched TV program every year. And we get to be backed up by the National Symphony Orchestra.
Daryl Davis.
Thank you all very much.
The Klan Whisperer himself. Daryl Davis, everyone.
Thank you all.
Let's keep the conversation going, okay? Thank you, Daryl. Daryl really does have a brand new book, The Klan Whisperer. We have some right there in the shop. If you want to get your CDs and your last minute items for the autograph party tonight, head on down to Club Orange to the Blues and Bazaar. Odd number cabins. You have a autograph signing midship leader 6:15 tonight.